Hello there. I'm Scotty. You're not. And we're talking about Teen Beach 2. And, you know, on this rewatch, I, I, I don't know. It hit me different on the rewatch, not in a good way. Rewatching it this time, I, oh, I don't hate this movie by any means. I like the music. Characters are still great. It's the writing of this movie. It's where the movie goes from the beginning to the end. I enjoy it most of the way through. Once it gets to the end, that's when it always just kind of falls apart. At a certain point in a film, towards the end of the movie, it just sort of falls apart for me. And I guess it's always done that, but this time it really caught me. There's a lot with this movie that didn't need to happen. So after the end of the last film, as you would assume, seeing the end credit scene from the last one, they are now on in the real world. However, they did change some things. So I don't know. So I started talking about this a little bit in the review for the first movie, but I think there was a writing change. I think they had a plan going off the end of the first one, and then they changed it for a reason that was painfully obvious to me this time. I was putting around my head before I watched this again, like, why they do it? Could they not get the villain actors to come back? Did they decide they want to go in a different direction? Well, different direction is where they went, and I feel like they had something perfectly set up, and it should have started with them already in the real world, but they decided we're gonna do it differently. Only have Tanner and Layla come through. Forget the villains, even though it's very obvious they would have came through too. I'll get to that in a second. And we're just gonna push these two because we're gonna push more female empowerment stuff down your throats. And that's all it is, because Layla, she wanted to be a little bit something more like in the first one, but that one was very Disney, like Ariel, like Belle, like all the Disney princesses. They want to be more. This one, full out flips out on its head, and Layla wants to just, you know, be her own woman to the point that even when she's told that if she doesn't go back, bad stuff might happen. She's like, nope, I'm staying here. And it's like, you guys are people in the movie, you have to play your roles. Nope, I'm staying here. I don't want to go back. To be fair, when she's confronted with the realization that everyone she knows and loves will cease to exist, she does go back. Well, she sort of does. Yeah. But my thought was, after the first one and everything, when they announced Teen Beach 2, I'm like, okay, so obviously the way they set up at the end of the first one was that all of them were in the world because they were in the real world because they ran into the water when they were going into surf. Who else is in the water? The two villains. Les Camembert and the sidekick guy. They were also in the water floating on that thing. So it would make sense if not only our characters were in the real world, but also the villains wreaking havoc. There's no villain in this movie. The villain is time, or time running down. Like, they have to get back for a certain point, or every one of the characters in the movie will cease to exist. I don't know. This movie, I don't know. So there's some things that right off the bat kind of rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. Like, so not rubbed me the wrong way, but it kind of confused me. It scratched my head the first time I watched it. It scratched my head like. So it starts with Brady and Mac on the beach, right? And they're like, oh, it's our 3-month anniversary. So this movie takes place shortly after the first one. So they kept that. But they had only been, so this what kind of throws a monkey wrench into the first film for me is that they had only been together for 3 months, and Brady was just expecting her to throw something she had been planning for years since her mother died to be with him. They only been together for less than 3 months at that point, and he expected her to throw everything away, which she did. But that's because they're gonna do female empowerment stuff, which worked in the first one. I'll tell you, all the female empowerment stuff in the first one worked because it was a fair amount and not all over the place. This movie, you just call it female empowerment the movie because that's what it is. I'm just saying. But yeah, so yeah, they've been together 3 months. That's it. Like they met at the beginning of the summer. It's the end of the summer. They're going to school, and they're gonna watch West Side Story. But it's the end of Wet Side Story. Excuse me, Wet Side Story. It's at the end, and the end song from West Side Story is the first song of this movie, which is very confusing because they didn't have an end song in that movie. They just left when it was over, like oh, they defeat it, and then the movie ends. So there's no like end song, but there would be. The end song was in the real world, in that one. So now we see the first song of this movie is the end song of Wet Side Story. Also, I want to point out that Aunt Antoinette, not in this movie, not mentioned, the grandfather, who should be around, not there. She was living with him, right? We see Brady's mother for like a minute. The grandfather gone. Couldn't get Brady Bosworth to come back, I guess. Maybe it wasn't needed for this movie. I don't know. Yeah. So you get the movie. They sing the song Best Summer Ever, which is the end song of West Side Story, this one. And then they say, everything's going to change when we go to school. They're like, no. Yes. They go to school, and we meet two new characters. We meet Devin, who is Brady's best friend, and we meet Alyssa, who is Mac's best friend. Alyssa is played by Piper Curda, who was in the Disney Channel show at the time. I Didn't Do It. She's also recently on The Flash, even though her character never showed up again. I don't know why they put her in there, but which ties her with Jordan Fisher, I guess. And then the guy who plays Devin, I have no idea who he is. Never seen him again. Seen him before or since, but yeah. And then there's Ross Butler's character, who's like a love interest for Alyssa. And these three characters are useless. They're on the side to be sort of, characters in the real world. They barely interact with Tanner and Layla, except for a few dance sequences, which Alyssa never really is in. Is it maybe the end one? And they're just there to be like background characters to show, oh, they had friends. And Ross Butler's character is just there to make Brady jealous, thinking that Mac, because they hang out, he's trying to steal Mac. But we as an audience know that he has a thing with Alyssa. They point that out from the beginning. There's something going on with them. Yet we're supposed to believe that, supposed to be on Brady's side and think he's trying to steal her, which doesn't make any sense. And I also find highly illogical, Captain, that these two are going to the exact same school and never met until the summer. I mean, I understand you can go to school and not know someone who's there, but I mean, you have a yearbook, you can look up everyone's names and stuff. Like I used to look at my yearbooks endlessly growing up. It was kind of cool to look at people's pictures and stuff. Not creepy or anything, just look at them and stuff. I knew people's names. Because it's my autism. It catches names, it remembers them, But you at least bump into someone. They were at least bumped into each other a couple times if they didn't really know it. It becomes even more illogical by the end. Yeah, and of course they have problems because she's the bookworm, as I explained in the first one, and he's the free-spirited guy. And they clash because now that they're back at school, Mac is all school Mac. Like, I have to do this, do that. Busy, I have to have a million freaking after-school things, planning a dance that is somehow that Friday, even though it's the first, what school has a dance the first week of school? You wouldn't have that long to plan the dance to begin with. Brady suggests that West Side Story party will project the movie on a big screen, and they say the movie's not that popular for the teenagers because, you know, it's for older people because it's from the 60s. Something I would have a problem with at the end because it just, I don't know. Meanwhile, we see in the movie world, because Brady's watching it on his tablet, we see in the movie world they're reenacting stuff. And it comes off as if they're like reenacting, like they know that they've been doing this. Because there's a couple times like, no, I can't do this. And yet later, when they're told that they're from a movie, they're surprised about it. But if they're self-aware, then wouldn't they know that they're doing the same thing over and over and over again when they figure out something's not right? Even later, when they show them on the tablet, Tanner's like, hey, that's us doing what we always do. And I'm like, well, if you're always doing the same thing and you know you're always doing the same thing, then why haven't you figured it out? I know Tanner's an idiot, but like everyone else, okay, to be fair, I think that Lada's probably the only smart person there, but still, I mean, come on. When they were surfing, Mac lost the necklace. It wasn't a bracelet, it was a necklace that Leda gave her. And I've got to mention, so when you got the DVDs, they each came with their own little thing. This one came with a surfboard keychain, which I had on my keys, but it broke off. And then it came with a little necklace thing. I took the necklace out of the chain, put the little flower thing on my keychain that also broke. But, you know, it was kind of cool, I should say. Yeah, so the necklace went in the water, washed up in the movie. So now the necklace has the magic power instead of the surfboard. Okay. And Layla finds it and walks off into the water with Tanner following her, and they end up in the real world where we get the out of water stuff. They use my phone. That's not the phone they're used to. And there's people in wetsuits, guys made of rubber, sort of things, kind of fish out of water stuff in reverse from the first one, which is fun. But Mac and Brady at this time are kind of at odds because Brady messes up and forgets like a college interview, which also shows the clash in their styles. But in a way, that's interesting, but also it only serves as a way to separate them. Again, they were already kind of separated in the first one. Now you think, okay, they should be together, but no, they're separated. You know? Yeah, they come to the real world. And of course, Layla wants to stay in this real world because here you could do what you want. You don't have to keep doing the same things over and over again. Which again calls back to if they knew they were doing the same things over and over again, why didn't it click in their head? You know? And then the world starts to bleed because, you know, they start doing the musical stuff here. And even the people at the school start to dance and stuff. And it's very obvious, like, I'm watching this, like, some of the high school students look 30. I mean, come on. I mean, I know the one who plays Chi-Chi, she was 30, but she looks kind of young. There is this woman, I say woman, in the Turn the Frown Upside Down song, that she looked 30. I mean, there's no denying. There's some guys that look 30, but I understand you got background dancers, whatever, playing high school students, you know, people in their 20s to do it, but they were 30. Come on. And they meet the friends that are really unnecessary, but they meet, say that Layla, Max says Layla is her cousin Olga from Switzerland or something. I don't know. She doesn't speak Swiss. I don't know. But she's a math freak, I guess. And we establish for later that every time Layla puts on clothes, 60 is a 5. They, change to look like she's from the 60s. And then later, when she starts to blend in with this world, it doesn't change. And that's when they're like, uh-oh, something's going on here. And then, do the thing with Tanner's hair gets wet. And he's like, because he never had his hair wet. And then he gets blurred out, "You guys are not real. You're from a movie." And they're like, "Huh?" Again, how did you not figure out something's not right? Repeating the same thing over and over again. It doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. So they tell them they have to, you know, they have to play their part, go back in, and Layla's like, "No, I don't want to," and she throws the necklace in the water. Yeah, because that we have to do that so that the people from the movie world can go through there. Which, if you were going to do that to begin with, why didn't you just follow on from the last one? We go back to the movie world and we find out that people are sparkling up and poof, disappearing. Because without Layla and Tanner there, who are the main characters, the movie is starting to disappear. And they established that they have no idea what they're doing without Layla and Tanner. They're bored. They're making card houses, you know. And I can only assume that the villains were the first to sparkle up and poof, because I can't imagine that, they wouldn't try to figure out what's going on. They're mentioned. We have to go to Les Camembert's evil lighthouse or whatever, and so then Butchie gets a hold of the necklace. And okay, we gotta go in there. We gotta find them, but he's afraid of water. And they do the same gag from before, where he's like, "Let's go," and everyone goes, and he stops, and he turns around, and Giggles is behind him again, like in the first one. It's like, okay, it was funny in the first one. This one, eh. So they go through, and they're currently looking for the necklace, but they come through and like, I love Brady's response though. "Are you kidding me?" So they tell him, "Hey, people are sparkling up. You gotta come back." They don't want to come back, and they're just like, "No, I'm staying here, Butchie." She's like, "Well, they're like, you're my brother. I'm your brother." Excuse me. They're like, "I'm your brother." He's like, "Well, yeah, but I don't know. That's a weird argument for me. I'm your brother." State the obvious more, please. So they decide they have to go back. But because there's like 30 minutes left of this movie, and Mac and Brady haven't made up yet, we're not done. They go to this dance, and of course they're miserable. We meet the unimportant side characters again, Devin, Alyssa, and Ross Butler's character. Then the movie characters show up again. Like, "What are you doing here? You gotta go back." Tanner is now thinking of other people because Tanner was self-centered. And his voice is a little more serious now because they're changing to be normal. Like, Layla's voice is normal and she's smarter, and he's normal, a little smarter. He's like, when we were worried. Well, he says, when we were doing that worry thing, you think he wouldn't say it like that, but about Mac and, everything, Mac and Layla. Well, I was thinking, try to put them back together, everything. I will just say here, I gotta go back and establish that Brady is secretly making surfboards, and he thinks that Mac won't understand. Hold on. Story. Ah! Different writers. Did they not see the first one? So he thinks Mac's not going to understand that he's making surfboards. Her grandfather made surfboards. She even says this later. "Well, my grandpa made surfboards." Yeah. Why didn't you think she would understand that? That makes no sense to me at all. I don't know. He's just hiding from her. It's one more thing to pull them apart so they can argue for most of the movie. But here, we do a dance sequence which brings them together. "Gotta be me," which telling them certain points, and then they get together. But then Butchie sparkles up, disappears, and he had the necklace. So now what do they do? "Oh no, we're stuck here. No, let's go get the surfboard from the first one." And this would have been a great place. Imagine if they brought Barry Bostwick back. I mean, think about it. These characters are from his favorite movie. Wouldn't it be something if when they go to get the board, he's there and he sees the characters from the movie, one of his favorite movies? It's like, oh my, you know? But no, they just get the surfboard and they say they're going to surf out, but there's no waves, man. So we cut back to the juxtaposition from earlier, the ex machina exposition from earlier, where Brett Brady said he was making a surfboard that doesn't need waves. So he takes Mac and shows her the secret surfboard area, which she's like, you should have told me, whatever. And then they say, okay, we'll do the surfboard. But then they waste time. They get the surfboard stuff. And then they sing another rendition of Meant to Be. Both couples. I'm like, really? You were saying that? Because everybody got sparkled and poofed away. And they're like, okay, we got to get you back. And it's like, now we're only going to sing a song. It's meant to be. I'm like, really? You're at a high pressure situation where you got to get them back. And you're singing a song right now. Why are we singing a song right now? We need to get them back. But song ends and they start the thing. And they say their goodbyes, and then they start to sparkle. It's like, we gotta go. Yeah, if you didn't stop to sing a fucking song, they would have been fine. Set Immortal up, can't get to work right away, he gets it. Mac puts on a sweatshirt because she's cold, and because we gotta set up something after this, which is the biggest problem I have with this movie. Alright? So while they're getting ready to go, this is where it starts my problems. Mac says, because she's, they didn't want to go back. She's like, you can go back there. You can make it your own movie. You can change the movie and make it whatever you want. And I'm like, no, she can't. Because the whole point of why they got to get back, because they put some stakes in this. If they don't go back, because it's the movie that brought Mac and Brady together, right? Also, I want to point out something here. Like, Brady and the grandpa seemed like they knew each other for a lot longer than 3 months. They're calling each other bro. I don't know. It was really weird. But anyway, that they met because of the movie. And if the movie's not around, they wouldn't meet. Which, again, they were going to the same school. So, but they wouldn't meet. And also, if it wasn't for that specific movie, Mac would have went with her Aunt Antoinette, which I'll get to it, but I guess you can justify it with what happens, but yeah, but she tells you can change the movie. Well, if she changes the movie, it's not the movie that you guys met over. You just, but they go through in the surfboard, and then Brady comes out of the water and runs right by Mac. What's going on? He runs up to Devin, and Devin's like, hey, night surfing. There was no waves, and it was really cold. And they go, what's going on? Oh, this is the dance. They're projecting a movie on the big screen on the beach, like Brady suggested earlier, and he has no idea what it is. And then Mac walks back in and sits next to Alyssa, and she takes her sweatshirt off, and she's wearing something different. And we see that now there's a poster behind her of a movie. Can't make out the title yet, but you see Layla front and center. So you can see that something's changed. Mac and Brady don't know each other. They're projecting something, a movie with our characters on it that was said before wasn't popular enough. And then we find out it's called Layla, Queen of the Beach. Here we go. So basically, they were trying to get them back so that they could save this movie that they met over so that they would still meet, right? Then she tells Layla to change the movie wherever she wants. So it's changed to Layla, Queen of the Beach, a movie that was, quote, ahead of its time, unquote. Because it was a female empowerment movie in an age, in an era where that some of that stuff existed, women's rights movements and stuff. I'm sure the 60s was around then, but a movie with a strong female lead who was the main character and not a love interest or damsel in distress in the 60s, that just did not exist. Nor would any producer or studio ever greenlight that kind of movie in the 60s. There just wasn't any of those. I mean, you had The Wizard of Oz in 1939, but she had to be saved by a lion, a scarecrow, and a Tin Man. She was in distress. She was a main character, but she wasn't a strong female lead by any means. Dorothy was not a strong female lead. She melted the witch with water. She was a strong female lead. She would have cut that bitch's head off. I'm just saying. Movies like that didn't exist back in the 60s and before. But now, all of a sudden, there is one. And I think this was the big start where Disney was like, we have to have strong female characters who cannot be infallible. You know, they can't be weak. They have no weaknesses. Nope. So we gotta, like I said, there was a little bit of that in the first one. But this one shoves it down your throat and makes you choke on it. There's so much of it. But Mac and Brady, and that's the thing. There's literally, once you get to this point, and then at the end, like, there's a dance sequence and stuff, and then Mac and Brady end up being romantic anyway because he catches her. You know, and he said, oh, I guess they fell for you, huh? And, yeah, so they're going to end up getting together anyway. So once you watch this movie at the end, you're like, well, what was the urgency of them trying to save the movie? It's like the writers wrote, okay, we're going to change the movie. But wasn't there an urgent thing about them saying, nah, we'll just have them get together anyway? It didn't matter if they tried to save that movie or not, because they would have met up it would have been 3 months later than they would have met up, but they still would have met up and got together. So it really didn't matter. It didn't matter at all if they saved the movie or not. So now it's a female empowerment movie, a female-led movie, Layla, Queen of the Beach, where Tanner, if you thought he was stupid before, he comes off way more stupid here. I mean, he was the female lead. He had some goofiness in him, but he knew he had to be the female lead. This one, there's the song, and the naming off dances, a bunch of dances, and at the end, Tanner goes, don't forget the kitchen sink. And they go, oh, Tanner, which is funny, but it's also, I thought of it this time, I'm like, no, they made him a stupid idiot male character. I don't know. It's not as offensive as what they did with the male characters in the Slumber Party Massacre remake, but I'm just saying. They made him stupid because this is the kind of movie now where the women are smart and the men are dumb. Even though Layla was already smarter than Tanner to begin with, I digress. I also want to point out that in this movie they actually had the actor who played Butchie sing his verses that he sang. It's only like in one song or so, but in the original they had some dub over with a deep voice. Better run, run, run. Here he sings with his regular, you know. And the first song in the movie names off most of the songs from the first movie. What was the? Hold on. Let me get the CD. Let me get the CD quick. And look. Okay, I got the CD for the first one. Okay. I can't stop singing 'cause the surf's up. It's meant to be. It's meant to be. I'm falling for you 'cause you're surf crazy. Just like me. Just like me. We're cruising. Cruising. Cruising for a yeah. That's like all the songs. Surf crazy, cruising for a bruising, falling for you, meant to be. Like me. Can't stop singing. Surf's up. Those are the songs from the first one. They put it all in one little beat in that. The songs in this are good. The songs, honestly, are the best part of this because I have fun with them. And it takes me away from the crappy writing that this movie has, building up to one big female empowerment message shoved down your throat. And I know I complain about it a lot. I'm not against female empowerment. I just think there's too damn much of it nowadays. Everything has to be strong female leads. Everything has to have different multiracial cast. Every character has to be black, white, black, or African American, or Chinese, or we have to shove all this representation down our throats. LGBT. I don't mind having those characters every once in a while, but not every movie or TV show has to have every single one of those characters. And for those people who complain about variety, it seems like nowadays every character in a TV show or movie has to have dark hair. Like, where's the blondes? Where's the redheads? I mean, come on. This one you got blondes and stuff, but I'm just saying, like, this was back when it wasn't as prevalent in media and stuff. But now, like, this was probably, when it comes to Disney, this was probably the start of when they were really pushing it. Disney has always had some form of female empowerment with their Disney princesses. But in recent years, they've really just started to push that down our throats to the point where it gets sickening sometimes. Where it's down your throat, you gotta pick it back up. And it's just, I don't know. And this movie, I don't hate this movie. There's some funny parts with it. There's stuff that I like. But it, like I said, when it gets to the end, when it gets to that, towards the end of the movie, it really hammers in that female empowerment stuff that just, I mean, they changed the timeline. And I don't know. And was there any setups for a sequel here? I really don't know, because there's a bracelet. That's where I got confused. There's a bracelet given to Layla, and they show it at the end. I do like when she starts singing the song, she's given like a leather jacket and she throws it up, Layla does, and it falls out into Mac's arms, and she puts it on, and you see it says Mac on the back, and then like she winks at her, like they don't know who they are. So I don't know, but I really think they could have done something, but I don't know. I feel like this movie was a missed opportunity. Like, in my version of the movie, you would have the villains from the first film in the real world causing havoc and not have to worry about it. It feels like they had that set up because they were in the water when the thing happened, and they were in the water, they went in, everything was supposed to happen, and then they're like, nope, let's change this, and let's put a message in here. Let's do a female empowerment stuff. Let's push that. Don't worry about whatever we set up. We can just rework it, which movies do. Rework some things, but this just, I don't know. Like I said, don't get me wrong. I don't hate this movie. I just feel like the female empowerment stuff didn't need to be as prevalent. Like, you didn't need, this ending is not necessary. Like, you could have just had them go back. I think that what should have happened is that Layla is forced to realize that this is her purpose. She has to do this because that's what she's destined to do. She has to be in this movie. She has to just deal with it. And, that's it. Just do it. Right? This is what you're supposed to do. Do it. And no, I'm not trying to put her in her place or anything, but I think that's like a better ending. It's like she realizes she wants this new world, but she realizes this is not her world. That is her world, and that's where she belongs. I mean, if this came out in the 90s, that's how it would end, because Disney wasn't pushing for that. She'd be like, oh no, that's where I belong. That's my home. But no, because this is the 2010s, we gotta push the female empowerment stuff. So she can't come to that realization because she has to be a strong female lead, and they completely flipped it, and then the ending just But I'm done rambling. When it comes to Teen Beach 2, it's the middle of the road. It's the middle of the road completely. I'd still watch it over some other Disney Channel version movies that are just kind of meh. But it's the middle of the road, It's the reason why I go back to this one more than this one. It's like, I can enjoy this. But then I watch this, and I watch this back to back, and then I experience just kind of meh. But, you know. So what are your thoughts on Teen Beach 2? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I've been Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.